Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Summit School District Spotlight. I'm Kirsten Anderson. I'm the Director of Communications for Summit School District, and today we are here to take a deep dive into the 4A bond measure that is on our ballots this November. I'm sure maybe you guys have seen the blue book in your mailbox already.
Sure have.
Today I am joined by Consuelo Redhorse, who is our board president, and Chris Carino, our board treasurer. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing the facts on the bond.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so Consuelo, let's start with you. Can you take us through the main categories of this bond?
Sure. So just kind of overview before we get into the categories is, so the 4A bond is a huge investment in the future of our students and our staff, our community, and our schools. Mm-hmm. So I would say some of the big points before we get into the buckets is it's about $13 a month for $1 million home value. So it's about $150 a year. It's $195.4, I believe, million dollars, and it is typically, school bonds are typically on a 4-year cycle, and our last bond was done in 2016. So it's kind of like we skipped a cycle and now we're back on. So we have some really exciting parts of it, and so I think the next part is we'll talk about some of the buckets that it actually includes.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 main buckets that we're looking at: an innovation center, and career and technical education, or hands-on learning, workforce housing component, and critical maintenance, those day-to-day things that we need to keep our many buildings running smoothly. Chris, you have a lot of experience in this area and some pretty cool stories to tell. Could you give us an overview?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm very proud to sit on our Board of Education, but my day job is I help school districts implement bond programs. So I've been building schools across Colorado for over 20 years. And as a matter of fact, my very first big school bond program was for the Summit School District. We did a big renovation on the Summit Middle School and did this very CTE expansion on the high school here.
Which is so cool to be in here. And I should mention that we're just before Halloween, so we're getting a little spooky in here, huh?
Yes.
I love it. But yeah, I wonder how many of our viewers realize this is in the high school. Incredible facilities we have here. In addition to the video production studio, we've got an extraordinary culinary arts classroom across the hall. Right around the corner, we've got a health sciences classroom with a full medical setup with gurneys and EKG machines, blood pressure machines and those kinds of things. It's wonderful. So, and that's part of what's so exciting about the bond here. One of the first big buckets, you mentioned a few buckets. The first big bucket is expanding this kind of programming. So CTE, career and technical education. We're talking about really expanding beyond just the programs I've mentioned and identifying or working with the team that's identified our pathways for our students and creating more customized spaces so we can deliver customized learning. And we're going to call that the Innovation Center, right? So the Pathways Innovation Center. It's an expansion of our CTE offerings, and it's going to live right here on the high school campus.
It was so cool. I was just here the other day as Mr. Van Oss was recognized by Harbor Freight Tools for Schools for excellence in teaching, and that's the work he's doing with welding and careers for construction, building tiny homes here, and they're out here in all kinds of weather, making that happen and just like igniting this passion for our students. It's so cool to see. So as we were talking about what could this look like, he said, I need indoor space. Yeah. And then just, I don't think we even think about like all the awards that our current students are receiving right now. Our culinary ProStart program has been around for 20 years and they're getting so much recognition, and it's so cool to see taking these programs and bringing them to scale to meet more of our student need.
Right. And it's so exciting to see the engagement and the excitement. Yes. When you go into the classrooms and you see their products, you see them working, you see them engaged. I think that's, as a school board member and as a system, I know that's something that we all really hope for, is that our kids are just so excited to come to school. And I think along with that is also providing that excitement and that engagement, as well as being able to prepare them for life after they graduate from after they graduate from high school, whether they go to college or trade school or go out into the workforce, providing the environment for them to learn so that when they make that change, it's not such a huge change. I've got this, I've done this before. Yeah.
And why not give our kids an opportunity to try out all these pathways while they're receiving a free public education here? After high school, it took me a long time to figure out my pathway, and that could get expensive if kids are paying tuition in colleges and trade schools and other institutions. If we could give them a chance to explore options here, learn career development, and try out different options here in conjunction with Colorado Mountain College, we're breaking new ground. And I think it's an amazing opportunity for our students.
Absolutely. And as Dave Asklund came in the other night and talked at the board meeting, developing lifelong learners as people move through multiple careers in their lifetime maybe, and how do they develop those skills that are transferable.
Yeah.
And just to take us back a little bit, the Pathways program we started over a year ago, building on the strength of our 20-year CTE program that's really been ushered in by Principal Doug Blake and a lot of the teachers with passion here, like Mr. Lutke and Mr. Van Oss and Mr. Crew and Joe Cassay. So they really looked at the courses that we're offering, and we did several outreach programs and surveys with our community, so with students, families, our business community, to land on the 7 pathways that we're looking at expanding, to say okay, what do we have strength in as a community? So where can we provide certifications, and where can we provide internship and credit and experience in the workplace? And that's how we landed on the pathways there. And I see that you're looking at our notes to take us through that, Consuelo.
Yeah, so some of the pathways, we have 7 pathways that are listed on here. It is business marketing, entrepreneurship, computer sciences, engineering and advanced manufacturing, health sciences, natural resources and outdoor leadership, skill trades, and human services and education.
Yeah.
So super exciting. And I think another piece that was important in gathering that community buy-in and feedback was making sure that our students have the ability to make a living wage. That's a huge part in making sure that the industry is going to continue to need people in these areas. So.
And Chris, we were just at the Summit Chamber, hosted a breakfast the other morning, and you were there and you were speaking about a mentee that you work with, or a mentee that you work with, and this in real life action. Could you share that story with us today?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to. And I think, this is just an example of scratching the surface, starting that Pathways conversation. But I'm really proud of this, and I participate in our pre-collegiate program here at the high school. Best in the state, big plug for our pre-collegiate program. And I work with some students, this is my 3rd year with them, so they're juniors. Last year, I had one of my kids was struggling a little bit with geometry. That's kind of a side note, but we weren't too focused on that. But I knew there was some challenges there, and we were encouraging her to go to tutoring and so forth. Late in the spring, I got a text. I became so excited, but I got a text and said, "I'm interested in nursing. Can you help me?" So I immediately reached out to the principals here at the school and the Pathways director and the pre-collegiate director. And I said, what do I do? Because this Pathways conversation was so new, we don't have it all in place yet. Of course, it's being implemented now. Long story short, we went and met with her. Came with her to meet with her guidance counselor. First thing he said was he looked at her transcripts. He said, you got to get your geometry grade up if you're going to do this. And that was a huge motivator for her. We also then looked at what she could take for her junior year. We modified what she had pre-registered for, aligned a curriculum for her junior year and her senior year that included concurrent enrollment with CMC. And we identified that as long as she got her finished strong in 10th grade, got that geometry grade up, She would be teed up for these next 2 years so that by the time she graduates Summit High School, she could have her certified nursing associate degree. That puts her right into the labor market and likely puts her in a job where if she wants to pursue further nursing career, her job's likely going to pay for her to complete that schooling. So then, without the systems in place, we reached out to a local industry partner, right? I have a friend that works at Vail Health, and I said, I need a tour. We've got to get this young lady a tour of the hospital. And it turned into a 2-hour job shadow at the surgical center in Dillon. You know, my student went from just saying, hey, I'm interested in this, to having curriculum lined up and now a potential job shadow to see what it's really like. She was so excited. Her mom brought her. We met there in the morning and we left for the day, left her with the medical team. When I checked in at noon, that was 8 a.m. When I checked in at noon to see how she was doing, they said, or how did it go?
Right.
They said she won't leave and we've got her scrubbed into a surgery. You know,
That's great.
Beyond exciting. She saw the blood. She bought in. She's in. She's really interested in this nursing career. And you know, I'm just ecstatic that our education system was there, found an industry partner, lined it up, and now she's on her way to a career.
So cool.
It's unbelievable. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and that is what we're doing right now, is formalizing those relationships, tying the curriculum back. It really gives the why behind the learning, which is so cool for our students of students today, right? And it saves so much money.
Yeah, it really does.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So moving on to the next bucket, an issue that we all feel here in the community, workforce housing.
Yes.
Walk us through that and what the vision
Yeah,
is.
so workforce housing right now, so it's as Kirsten mentioned, it's tough in Summit County. It's a challenge that we face along with many other industries, but here in the school district, it's attracting and retaining talent. You know, it's hard for our teachers and our staff to be able to live in the community that they work in. So this bucket includes, in terms of the bond, building 60 affordable rental units on the old Silverthorne Elementary site. So for those of you that don't know where that is kind of, I would say, over by the post office in Silverthorne. So it's a really great place. It has neighborhoods around it already. It has a soccer field that will stay. It's close to transportation. It's close to the town core. It's a really great location, and it's modeled after some of the other housing initiatives that we see in many other resort communities here in Colorado. So I would say Eagle County being one of them, Roaring Fork being another. And I actually had the opportunity, I'd say in the last month or so, to go check out the newest staff housing over in Carbondale. And that was fantastic. I mean, they had tons of storage space, you know, to store all the indoor, outdoor toys, you know, for all seasons. Yeah, and it was really great. We saw a 3-bedroom, and it was nice. Yeah. And it was something that, you know, we had legislators join us to see what's going on in school districts and the needs that we really are feeling. Yeah. So I think another piece that we found some more information about, and it aligns with our plans as a school district, is to have have an outside property manager partnership to be able to manage those. And I think that's really important to provide that little bit of a distance there. So it's pretty exciting. I mean, I think it's a really great opportunity.
It's amazing. I think that last point is really important, because some folks have said, why does the school district want to be a landlord? You know, why would a teacher want their boss to be the landlord? That's not the case. This is going to be a resource we provide for our staff, not just teachers, and really it's going to become a line item within the budgets with a property management company and everything. We're not going to have people at central admin property managing this thing, you know. It's also important to mention with the workforce housing that's going on around the county, you know, we know everybody needs it. We're one of the largest employers here next to the resort. So we've got skin in this game, and we've got a commitment to really help. Another piece to think about is the challenges with setting the rents on all of our workforce housing around the county. There's development costs, there's construction costs, there's all those things that come in on the front end, and they're only able to get their rents to whatever level that may be. what this gift would be to the staff of our district is we would be able to eliminate the upfront construction costs by having it funded by the bond payers, right? The bond funds. That then allows us to rent these units to our staff at below market rate, affordable rates, so that our staff doesn't have to go and get 2 and 3 jobs, and they could focus on educating our kids, and we could retain them for longer, and the ripple effect is just exponential.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that being able to we did a survey and 48% of our staff said that they were cost burdened by their mortgage, and that means they're paying upwards of 30%. Honestly, most people are paying 50% of their salary to stay here, and that's causing people to think about moving elsewhere and really struggle. And this provides opportunity for employees to come in and save money and utilize other investment strategies so that they can get ahead. And when we look at our overall compensation package, what a cool thing to retain and attract employees. And right now we are doing pretty well in terms of turnover and having teaching positions filled, but we do not have subs or flexibility when we have sick days or people are out of the classroom. And so the ability to ease that tension in our system is pretty incredible.
It really is.
And I think we're not alone. To your point, Chris, we see every major employer in the area getting into this game. Dr. Bird says, of course the superintendent doesn't want to get into property management, and that's why we would lean into our partners, look at those successful models to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And as Chris mentioned too, it's like the ripple effect of this, the well-being of our teachers and our staff is felt by our students every day. And so being able again to focus on educating, and it you can feel it in the classrooms. You can feel a relief, and that along with the salaries that we try to stay as competitive as we can for. So we're really trying to do the best that we can for our teachers and staff.
It's an and also, not an either or.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And then, Consuelo, you've pointed this out. This would most likely be a lottery program that would be for teachers and our support staff. And speak to the importance of the people in our kitchens and driving our buses in making our overall system work effectively.
Yeah, I think you just said it. We're a team effort here, and so while we have educators in our classroom specifically, the relationships and the roles of running a smooth school, running a safe school, and providing all the services that our kids need, whether it's healthy food, whether it's transportation, and whether it's really looking out, providing those extra supports in our classrooms that our paras do. I mean, there's just so much that a school system takes to run. People making sure that our areas are clean and healthy. And so it's really, if we don't have all of those extra hands outside of the classroom and even into our classrooms, then we're at a tough spot. So we really need to be able to watch out for the health of all of our people and all of our system for our kids.
And turnover is expensive. We've turned over, I think, 120-ish employees in the last couple of years. There's expenses associated with training and all of the things. And if we're constantly in that cycle, how are we ever really focus on developing quality educators and support staff?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that overview. That brings us into the third category or bucket, which is critical maintenance and infrastructure.
Yeah, so I could start on that one, but
wonderful.
So, I've watched this district be incredibly fiscally responsible with our facilities for the 20 years that I've been engaged here. And we do all the needs and we handle some of the wants, and then oftentimes we're addressing the musts.
Yeah.
And as incredible a facilities team as we have, and they've done such a great job, our buildings are old. Our newest facility is Silverthorne Elementary, and that was built in 2004. So a lot of our buildings, even though they may be well maintained, they have aging systems. So this portion, this third bucket of the bond, is to address items like this district-wide. Failing boilers, HVAC and mechanical upgrades, which means money. That's energy efficiency and dollars we're paying for utilities. Security upgrades. The security world is constantly evolving, as are the threats. And included in this bucket is district-wide security upgrades to really secure our buildings, keep our kids and our staff as safe as we possibly can anyway. So in addition to kind of the district-wide upgrades, excuse me, I forgot to mention playgrounds as well. We have aging and failing playgrounds at our elementary schools that desperately need some attention, early childhood and elementary. And then the big one within this bucket is a new Breckenridge Elementary School. And I know there's been a lot of questions about that and so forth. And if there's anything we could drive home to the community, this was not a quick decision.
Oh, yeah.
For months and maybe it's probably even a couple of years, we examined many options. Renovate and add, combine with Upper Blue, build new. We explored all of those options. We surveyed not just our school community, but the surrounding community and even community leadership and stakeholders. The end result is, what we found is we simply can't combine the two schools. There just isn't enough space at Upper Blue to absorb Breckenridge Elementary. It would involve substantial addition and some renovation. You need more cafeteria space and things like that to feed more kids. The end result was the cost of adding and renovating to Upper Blue was so considerable. My percentage is off, but I think it was something like 3/4 of what it would cost to build a brand new Breckenridge Elementary. So that's a big consideration. Okay, maybe we still could have saved some money. However, our friends here at Breckenridge asked us to consider something else, and that's community-wide safety. School gets out, except for Wednesdays, at 3:50. The mountain closes at 4 p.m. The majority of the mountain's parking is now on Airport Road, adjacent to Upper Blue Elementary. We were, Summit County Sheriff's Police and Town of Breck, there was real concern over major security or safety issues with gridlock. Think about those times when you're trying to leave on those, peak season days at 4 p.m.
Interest, for sure.
And then throw a bunch of school buses in there as well. So it's an unsafe decision. So that, combined with many, many other reasons, we made the call to ask the community to replace Breckenridge Elementary.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a lot of discussion. I think something that I hear talked about from the parents there in that area is that in 2016, when we did a lot of work to the other elementary schools and made the maker spaces and did those upgrades, we said to that community, oh, you're next. Breckenridge Elementary, and here we are 8 years later, and that school looks very similar to the other schools in our district from the outside, but when you talk about things like fire suppression, there are not the level of sprinkler heads in there that there should be. You're looking at rooms that maybe don't have windows, and like the families there love their community so much that they have worked with it and they make it happen. But the opportunity to start fresh and create these learning environments that meet the needs of today is such a cool opportunity.
It really is. And I think one thing that we didn't even speak to now, and Chris is much more well-versed in this, is the FCI.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk a little bit about the FCI, and then I think probably some of the maintenance that is required to maintain the building as it is right now.
I'm happy to talk about that. So the FCI is a Facilities Condition Index, and it's a rating that every school building in the state of Colorado has been given from CDE. I believe it stirred up when the BEST grant program started. We'll probably talk about that later. But it's a way of the state having a marker on the quality and the level of safety and quality of a building. By far, Breckenridge Elementary is our worst building, and it is scored by the state in the red. The roof no longer meets modern codes. As I mentioned before, I was actually using Breck Elementary specifics as a failing boiler. There's leaks in the gymnasium for years. The HVAC is just very poor quality. That takes a lot of time from our maintenance team. It takes a lot of money to keep putting Band-Aids over and over again. So that was really all part of what led to the decision as well. And if you don't mind humoring me, you mentioned 2016.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to 2008. So we have a couple of sister buildings in the community. Frisco Elementary and Dillon Valley Elementary were built with the same construction plans, and they've been modified so they're slightly different now. Well, so was way back, Breckenridge Elementary and the old Silverthorne Elementary. Same era, same footprints. When we demolished the old Silverthorne Elementary in 2008, we told Breckenridge then, you're next. So it's been almost 20 years that building has really been slated for replacement. And I think we were being responsible in doing the right thing by not doing that too soon. But if we don't do it now, the need's not going to go away and the cost isn't going to go down. So it's just going to cost us more money to do it later.
I think the other thing too is people think, oh, we'll close the school and it'll be a 1-to-1 savings ratio, like you save all of that money. And actually the requirement of full-time employees to meet the needs of the students is still there. So 20% is really what you look at when you talk about closing a school. It's not a windfall of savings.
Right. Yeah, and it is that one-time savings because I mean you still have the same number of kids. You bring them over to a new location. I mean they're still going to need the teachers. They're still going to need the support. So it's a one-time savings, and I think it's the most responsible thing that we can do as board members, helping to guide the decision to be responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars, as well as making sure of the well-being and education of our community's kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
So speaking of fiscal responsibility, when we're out in the community all the time, we hear thoughts and ideas about how schools are funded and the recent property valuation increase. And so what are we doing with that money? And Consuelo, maybe you could walk us through a little bit about like what the reality of that actually looks like.
So yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions. And I would say even as a board member, it takes a while to understand school finance. And it's because I would say in Colorado, school finance is complicated. As simple as I can make it to people that don't want to, be a board member for 4 years to get that basic understanding is we have a school finance formula in Colorado, and it determines the amount of per pupil funding, so per student funding that each school district receives. Now those, the two main pieces of that dollar amount is either funded from the state or our local property taxes. So when our property taxes, as in Summit County, went up, and we all saw our bills went up, basically what it does is it changes the distribution of that pie. So previously, I believe it was something like, so 73, so about 3/4 local, about 1/4 from the state. So if you think of a pie, 3/4 from us, local payers, 1/4 from the state. When we had our higher property taxes, that changed to about 90% local and a little tiny, 10-ish% sliver from the state. And so really, we don't get that extra money. What happens is it takes the pressure off the state when we, as local taxpayers, pay more, but it does not increase that amount.
Right.
And I think that's something that is, that's really, really simplified. But we still get the same amount of money. It's just determined from who is paying in.
And that's especially confusing for myself included, for transplants that move to Colorado, because it's not like that in a lot of states. And I don't think a lot of people realize just how poorly funded public education here is in the state. So.
Yeah, we're in the bottom third of per pupil financing, which of course is reflected in our teacher salaries that are amongst the lowest nationwide, and per pupil funding. And so really it's an opportunity to, and then also our funding, which is a operations budget, right? That's the other thing. So the general fund is operations, and that handles things like curriculum and our salaries and benefits, and it does not cover things like capital improvements.
Correct. And I think that's something that as we, if we want to talk a little bit more about school funding is, looking at the formula, there is no factor that says here's, that this is for capital projects, that this is for your facilities. It's all based, it's great that it's based on student need, but there's nothing that considers, the state of the facilities, and that is so important.
Peace matters, yeah.
To how our students learn.
Yes.
So the school district has a payment that is being paid off in December, which is lowering our overall, the money that we're taking in, which allows us to go for the bond at this time and have some offsetting costs. So I'm just going to have you reiterate the cost of this bond, what that means to the average taxpayer one more time.
Absolutely. So this is on $1 million home. Our valuations that we get in the mail are getting higher again, and so we're looking at about $13 per month for a home. So that comes out to about $150 a year. And we talked a little bit just kind of about some of that accountability and the fiscal responsibility there. And I just want taxpayers in our community to know that we take that for real.
Yes.
The accountability, the transparency, the responsibility that we have as stewards of those taxpayer dollars is really, really important to us. So we'll have annual audits. We have annual audits now. We'll continue with annual audits. We'll have a citizens oversight committee, and we'll make sure that these dollars are how they're being used and the project that they support is made available to the public, and that we'll be able to have citizens that are outside of the board, that are outside of the system, really helping to ensure that we are using those dollars with the most efficiency and effectiveness that we can. So I just wanted to make that clear as we talk about these bond funds, that we really do take that seriously.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind just for a minute, let's empathize with everybody, right? We all just got hit with the big property tax bill, our valuations increased. We may not understand that doesn't mean an extra dime for the schools. Right. We're thinking we're paying all these extra taxes, that must mean the school district has money, and now you're asking me for more.
Yeah.
I need to empathize that we understand that may be perceived as not being appropriate timing. Yeah. But again, we just can't emphasize enough. First of all, if you're a renter, this really doesn't impact you. This impacts our real estate owners. Yeah. And as Consuelo has mentioned a few times, for every $1 million of value, it's going to cost you $156 a year. That $156 a year leads to strong schools, stronger staff, stronger educational environment, better outcomes, better student outcomes for our kids. Strong schools lead to strong communities. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, none of this need is going to go away, and it's never going to become less expensive. Right. So if we need the community to support us now to help build our workforce, to help sustain our workforce, and to help improve our community in the long run.
Yeah, there is a cost to doing nothing.
Yes.
Chris, with your expertise, can you also just walk us through the BEST grant? That's something that I've heard in the community a lot, and what our opportunities are with that? Yeah,
thank you. My career is building BEST grant schools. I mean, I do other work, but this is what I live and breathe since the program's inception back around 2007. It's a wonderful program. It was a needs-based, it was actually a result of a lawsuit because certain failing structures across the state realized that those school districts realized that they weren't getting the same education as Dougco and Jeffco and DPS kids. And they said, CDE, you've got to help us. Yeah. We don't have funding. We can't pass a bond all the time. We need help. So the BEST grant was formed, Building Excellent Schools Today. It's a need-based grant. It's got ranked tiers of priorities, safety and security being the first one, and technology has moved its way up in the ranking over the years, but there's a whole tier of priorities. It is, I would say, a desperation needs-based program. Last year, there was $620 million in applications statewide. The state was able to fund $120 million in projects. So, less than 25%. It's extremely competitive. And those that are getting the funds are quite often much less affluent communities, and quite often have much more severe needs. Their building isn't 50 years old with failing mechanical. Their building is much, much older with failing structures coming down and, real safety issues. So, can we get a BEST grant? Maybe, but we're going to have to really be competitive. The grant, by its very nature, is a matching grant. There's an algorithm that determines what your match will be. Because our community, although our schools may not be as funded where we want, but because our community is a little bit more affluent, our match is quite high. So even if we get a BEST grant, we're responsible for paying. Last year was about 70%. The year before that is about 80%, so it fluctuates a little bit. But we're responsible for paying about 3/4 of whatever that project would be. And we'd qualify potentially for a grant for that last 25%. To go into a BEST grant application and say, we don't have the 25%, but can we have a grant? You're a little bit less competitive than going in and saying, we just passed a bond. Our community supports this need. They know we need a new school. We've got safety and security issues. We need that 25%. Now we're applying for a bond and we're much, much more competitive. So that, I think, the notion that the district failed to apply for a BEST grant or neglected to apply for a BEST grant is flat out incorrect. It's actually far more strategic to pass your bond first, and it's an annual cycle. The application opens in December. We pass this bond, we could apply a month later.
Great timing.
It's perfect timing. So I would love everybody in the community to understand that's just not a true statement.
Absolutely. Well, I've learned a ton through this discussion and through this process, and that's what we really want from our voters too,
Yes.
that they get informed and they get out and vote. Before we say goodbye today, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with, Consuelo?
I think that, again, to reiterate the importance of the 4A bond. This is an investment in our future. We can all pitch in a little bit. Sometimes I feel like people don't feel like they can make an individual impact. This is an individual impact that we make as a collective community that really supports the future of our kids, that supports the current living, our community, the members of our community. And again, there's information in the Blue Book.
Yep.
There's ballots. People may have already received them or not. And then there's also, there's lots of places you can find information. We have a flyer here, but there's a lot of information on the school website.
On the website, there's a candidate forum on
Exactly.
Monday night at 6 p.m. at the Colorado Mountain College. So it's a great place to get informed.
And people can still register to vote too. So we are very fortunate in Colorado to have the ability to make changes and to register, pretty close up to the date of elections. So I think that's important. If you haven't, if you don't know if you're registered, you can go on the website. You can go on the county assessor's website or the Secretary of State's website. Just Google it, and you can see if if your address is right. You can make sure that you're registered. You can make sure you can check the status of your ballot, so you can see whether it's been mailed out. And I think that's really important. Just as citizens of this community, we all have a responsibility to make our voices heard.
I went and looked the other day. So much transparency in the process.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yes.
Chris?
I guess I would just like people to know that we're going to, of course, respect everyone's motivations and their desires and however they choose to vote, but we really want everybody to do their research, really understand what's at stake here, and vote whichever way they feel best. And just realize if this bond does pass, yes, the downside is we're all going to pay a couple $100 more taxes every year. But on the pro side, the expansion and additional offerings that we'll be able to provide for our future, for our students, the trade-off is priceless. And I just think if everyone really understands how much they could be impactful in that mission, I think we've got a slam dunk on our hands. But learn your position and cast your vote, please.
Well, thank you both so much for being here with me today. I can't speak enough to the time that you guys give to our school district, to you're out in the schools, you're in meetings, your passion and time is so appreciated. So thank you, and thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next time on the Summit Spotlight.
Thank you.